what's going on now, and I'd just like for everyone to lift their heads. So when you go out, I expect for a lot of you to be kind of confused a little bit because it's a lot of information. So what happened in here? That's normal. That's not a disease. So I'd just like to address some of the issues I've been seeing in the industry to try to move forward. So please use the microphones when you talk, guys. So Frederick, I just want to ask you first. The PPBIM standard is now something which the government is directly asking for. Why do you need the government? Why can't just the industry fix it?
Well, that's quite easy to understand. At first, as I told you this morning, IAMCC, manufacturers, were leading the project. So we made the standard, and for the trials, a lot of different stakeholders, like contractors, engineers, they just realized that this is really important and they cannot let the manufacturer lead these things completely alone. And the only way to avoid that was for the government to take the lead of the project and to involve all the stakeholders inside the project.
Has the other actors in the industry, have they actively been involved in this?
At the beginning, they were not. And now it's a governmental operation, and all the stakeholders are really active, yes. So that made the difference. You've got the credibility from the government, and they found the interest. So now they are still all active, yeah.
So how many people have been working with this? How many people have been working with this in, let's say, the last 3-4 years?
On the standard, you mean?
Yes.
Just to write the standard, we were 8 people, but in the steering committee of PPBIM, it was about, I think, 30, 35 people from manufacturers, architects, engineers, contractors. And now we are planning to, for the following of the project, and what we want to do with experts, we will have about, I think, something like 60 experts working on it.
And this is funded by the government?
All is funded by the government, yeah.
So they understand it?
Yeah. The government will pay each expert for the properties.
Yeah, so they get paid for actually doing this work, okay.
Yes.
Jens, in Norway, we have had the same discussion. Why has not anything happened yet on the same issue?
I think we have many challenges, I think, but I think this is a complex situation, and everybody agrees that we need to do something. We should have a common digital foundation, but that is a huge task, and nobody wants to start investing into that in a common digital foundation until we know that this is the real thing. And I think that's why it's so important for also get the Norwegian government together with the industry to actually jump together and actually invest in one common digital foundation for the construction sector in Norway.
So, do you see there is in the, let's say, in the Nordic countries, do you see people understanding this, or do you see that still the industry kind of solves it themselves?
I think everybody understands that the digital future is here, and we are Norwegian. We are the best using technology, and we use the mobile phone and everything. But I think we are digitalizing each person or each the industry or each company is doing their own digitalization. We haven't managed to go together in one direction and put all the eggs into one basket, so to speak.
Nick, the UK has the government put out a UK BIM task group. How much money have they spent on this group in total to, let's say, to digitize standards and so on?
I don't know the exact number, but I would suggest for BIM level 2, a couple of million has been spent. Nothing huge, but a few £1 million. But for BIM level 3, they've just secured 15 million for over 3 years, so they've got £5 million per year.
And who pays this money?
I do.
It's a taxpayers' money. So the
all my
taxpayers
money.
are paying for it.
Yeah.
So why are they doing this? I mean, the key, we've spoken about it, but why is the government involved saying, let's do it this way?
That's a good question. It's interesting because I think it was a perfect storm, because this all started around the recession. Now, I don't know what the recession... I imagine you didn't have too bad a recession in Norway.
Oil.
Because of oil. Not like us. So we had a bad recession, and the Conservative Party got into power, and their whole mantra was saving money. So, again, Mark Bew and Mervyn Richards did a brilliant job of saying to them, use BIM, it's a way of saving you money. And they liked that. So the Conservative government, who were fresh in office, saw that as a way to go and save money in the building and operation of infrastructure and buildings. So that's how it got in there, and that's why they really, really heavily supported it. And then I think there was that, and then the whole idea of exporting British skills, because Britain's always been really good at exporting engineering and architecture. We're like, in terms of, we're one of the world leaders in our skills in architecture and engineering. So I think they thought it was a way to not only improve what they do, but to actually sell the UK companies abroad.
The British Empire.
Yeah.
Richard, all these initiatives from different countries around Europe, how would that affect, and how would that help or not help building smart standards and building smart?
Well, I think for the moment it is raising the bar, raising the expectation, and I think raising the level of interest. And actually, I take that all as very good, because we're getting a broader group of professionals and companies understanding the need, starting to work with data, a ferment of interest, and that is certainly bubbling up both in terms of companies becoming more interested in the building smart world and standards, and in chapters from new countries, expressions of interest in chapters. I think alongside that is, there is a sort of now confusion of what's the right way to go, what's the right roadmap, how is this to be led, who's in charge, and I sort of see that we are in a phase now which is both positive but has quite significant challenges to get through.
Just to be direct there. There is, let's say there are 3 or 4 major countries in Europe. France, Germany, Italy, and the UK. Big countries, many people. But what's going on in the UK is that they have started before the others. And a lot of things are going on in the UK. So do you think there is kind of a BIM race out there between the different countries?
Well, I think things are definitely going at different speeds. It's important to understand that the UK approach is very top-down, very strategic in its approach. So, as it addresses the high-level processes, a lot of the other countries have come from the technical end, bottom-up, really, but still with a sort of axis of the IFC, which is good. I mean, as well as these important countries in Europe, I would say there is a lot of work being done in Asia. Korea and China have put a lot of effort in, a lot of money. So it's not necessarily true that Europe is going to set the game on this, it's certainly these different philosophies, different approaches are in the melding pot at the moment. One of the key things to be successful in this, in my mind, is to keep a steady course and to understand we want this open BIM goal, and to work together with all the parties as constructively as we can. And I suppose that's what we're struggling to do in Building Smart.
So we see that in our day-to-day business, we see a lot of interest coming from especially big actors, big projects and so on. But Nick, I'd just like to ask you, how do you see that BIM will affect actors in the industry, let me say 18 months from now?
Sorry, when you mean actors, what type of actors?
I mean, like manufacturers, contractors, architects. Will they work differently in 18 months than now?
That's a good question. Let's hope so. This is, I really hope they do. What Richard mentioned, the top-down approach, I think is actually really important for that, because the thing that's made it happen in the UK is that mandate. As I said, the fact is, if you want to work for the UK government projects, you must do BIM level 2. That's made the rest of the industry sit up and take notice. I think if they hadn't have mandated that, there wouldn't be anywhere near the level of interest. And by the Ministry of Justice saying this is the data we require, that's sharpening the views of people. So I think my feeling is, if the big clients in the UK make this mandatory, yes, the industry will go and will fly. If they don't, then I just don't think it will. I think on the whole, construction industry is generally lazy, and we try and do the minimum we can do. Now, I think the stick approach and carrot is the right way. I think it will happen, because I think the government departments will push it and will require data. And then I think everyone else will follow and copy them. Private sector clients will copy, and then that flows down then to the big contractors. And I'm seeing it already. Skanska are already well and truly on board and saying these are our data requirements. And now I need then the next UK ones, the Carillions, Balfour Beatties, to do the same. And then that will flow. So my view on it is I think it will, but I really believe that the big clients and then the big contractors have got to make it happen.
In addition to that point, I would say that sort of top-down mandate has, I think, also catalysed activity in other governments in Europe, and we've seen the EU BIM client group coming together. So it's stimulated activity, and on the whole, from my point of view, that's good. Now we have somehow to manage and direct the activity, but interest is a key ingredient.
Yeah. So the standards coming out now, as I see it, will affect different actors in Europe. And the way of working, I think, is also going to change. But from a Building Smart point of view, Richard, as you mentioned, Europe might not be leading this. So how do we envision these standards to affect the industry within the next 12 to 18 months?
12 to 18 months. Well, I think 12 to 18 months, I actually think that's the firmament period for the leadership to kind of settle down, I would think, probably in Europe. I think actually, I think it's a very interesting period, because I think this is the sort of time frame in which the IFC should actually become certified and come to the market, and it will provide a new level of functionality to people that's not available today. So I think our contribution can go up in that period of time. I think also in that period of time we will produce the tools to link the data dictionary, if you like, dynamically to the IFC. And again, so there's quite some significant extensions of capability that should make these open standards more demonstrably meaningful to people at the front edge.
Yeah. Jens, you represent house builders. These are building Norwegian houses like Mesterhus and so on. Why is your organization involved in this, and why have you been on? Why are you pushing this so hard?
I represent Norwegian Home Builders Association, and we have home builders. We are a fragmented industry. There's a lot of small builders building 1 or 2 houses a year, and we have big builders like Selvåg, for instance, building tall residential buildings. So, but I think what we saw, that actually the communication between the different disciplines in a small building project, we are wasting so much money because of we lose the information by actually doing a little bit more in the design phase. We saw that you can improve productivity and also increase the quality in the project. And regarding terminology, we saw that we need a common language in order to understand what is a window, what is a room actually, and Norway is a small country, and we cannot set the standards, so we need to seek the European and international standards. And this is actually changing the industry now. We are really up to controlling the building cost. The housing prices are rising sky high, helped by increased regulation, more regulation from the authorities and energy, whatever they put on our shoulders. We need to be more efficient. And I think the only way to do that is to digitalize the process using BIM. And we have some examples already. With the existing building codes today, we can reduce the building cost by 20%. That is an example from Norgeshus, when they are actually developing home concepts by using Lean, BIM, standardized on manufacturers and so on. So it is possible, but we have a huge educational gap. We need to educate people, including the government, because we see that we shall compete on applications and software and business processes, but we should not compete on the standards level.
Talking about education, I'd like to address. I'm talking a lot to students. The industry is changing, and how do you guys think that universities should pick up these changes, and how important is it for them to be involved in these things going on? Anyone?
Well, I think one of the areas that we look at in Building Smart is how we engage with users. And I sort of feel that a very important element, actually, of those users is we can talk to the top managers fairly easily, but it's that middle management and the sort of the younger groups that can be really influential in how quickly these changes are picked up. And actually, those younger people, the students, are probably quicker, more able to really pick this new technology up more quickly, and that influence their seniors, middle managers. So actually, I think they're a really important group to engage with, and how we effectively do that, I'd rather leave that to our chapters to do country by country.
Jens and I were sitting in the election committee of Building Smart Norway. Jens, we had this discussion. So if you're an architect student or engineer going to school for, let's say, 5 years, the plan is made out for you on what you're supposed to learn. Now, if I start at school now in August, September, I forward this education plan, 5 years. How do you think the professor is able to catch up with these changes? What do you think is important for the professor and for, let's say, NTNU in Norwegian, important institution? What should they do? Asking
me?
Yes.
I think there's a challenge for everybody today when the world is going digital. Everybody is securing their own knowledge and building fences around their own knowledge, because knowledge is power. And an architectural professor, he doesn't know, doesn't know BIM, he can actually lose face because he don't know it, and he will lose power. And I think that's the simple thing you need to get younger professors, or they have to train the professors in new topics and using new tools, or force them. But we need a client or that actually asking them to do it.
In France or in the UK, is there formed any groups where you can go and discuss stuff depending on who you are? Frederick?
We have several things in France for education. The first one is the French digital plan, the PTNB. They've got some money and they will make projects for education. That's the first thing. They want to help university and schools to go to it. We have also a group inside the French chapter for education. And one group is called EduBIM. It's BIM for education. There is a meeting each year between all the big schools, engineer schools in France, discussing about the programs, what they need to learn the students, etc. So things are going quite well for that. We have new degrees, BIM degrees in several engineer schools. A key point is architect schools. In many architect schools in France, the teachers are just saying, we don't care, we are artists and we don't care with BIM. And it's really hard to push in those kind of schools teaching BIM, but we're on it.
Nick, could you comment on how the BIM 4 groups or how this is done?
My example of this analogy is sustainability, because sustainability got big, or low energy building design, construction got big in the UK in the early noughties, 2001, 2, 3. And exactly the same thing happened. There was, each company then appointed a sustainability manager, and they had some business-to-business type training, on-the-site training. And then the universities were the same, they were a bit slow. But what I found was the universities then started putting it into their courses, and now you don't need a sustainability champion in a business in the UK. You still have them, but the point is everyone's been upskilled now, so we all understand a lot more about BREEAM or passive house or low energy design. And I think that's the same thing with BIM. I think what I want to get away from is the individual like BIM masters or BIM degree, and it needs to be embedded in courses, and it's not there yet. I did a lecture to a master's department from architecture school in Cardiff a few months ago, and not one person even knew what BIM was, which I found shocking. They asked me to do a 2-hour lecture, and they thought that was going to cover it. I didn't even scratch the surface. So my point is I think it will happen. I think it can go like sustainability. We're in a business-to-business phase, as in I go away and do a 1-week course or a 2-day course. We need to get it embedded into university teachings and not just one-off courses.
So the last question, Richard, is for you. It's all about risk. All the people here today and everyone listening in. Is there a risk for these people at all if they don't attend to these things we're talking about today? Is there a risk at all, or could they just look away?
Well, there's always risk, whichever way you look. Are you in and out? I think I would, say you have to decide really whether you're going to get the biggest advantage. And my proposition would be, you can sort of be second, a follower, and think that that's safe, but then you're probably then, losing out on the leading edge opportunities. And you can also go in and be the leading edge person, and you probably make some mistakes. So it kind of does depend a bit on your business philosophy. But my view is that this is something that's happening. Pretending it's not happening isn't going to help, and you need to fix your business strategy, whether it's in or out, with a mature recognition that it is going to happen. And do you want to shape the future, or do you just want to take what other people give you?
Thank you, guys. Applause.